It was spring break of 2007, and I was home from college during what felt like the worst semester of my life. Classes were extra hard for me that year, and not to mention, I had just gone through my first major breakup, and as a 19-year-old, I was still learning how to deal with that. So spring break was just what I needed. And to make things even better, my family had a timeshare on a cabin that was located in the woods just past Oneonta in upstate New York. I knew that I needed a break from the pressure of the real world and needed to find some peace of mind, so I asked my parents if I could spend a few days in the cabin if it was available. And to my luck, it was. And to my surprise, my parents were totally fine with it. We planned it out meticulously so that they wouldn't be worried about me. I was going to stay from Monday through Thursday, so I would need 4 days worth of food and water just in case the plumbing from the well wasn't working. After gathering all my supplies and packing my clothes, I hopped into my Subaru Outback and made my way to the cabin. It was about a 4-hour drive, but I just jammed out to some A Day to Remember, and the time flew by. In no time at all, I was at the cabin, and I began to bring my things inside. I checked the sink, and the plumbing seemed to be working fine. After getting settled in, I made my way around the property and just enjoyed taking in all the sights. To be honest, the first few days were just pure bliss. I couldn't think of anything I would have rather been doing. Nothing compared to the scenery of the hikes that I went on or the 2 fires that I had outside the first 2 nights I was there. It was great. I just listened to some music and let my mind wander. It wasn't until the 3rd day that things began to get a little strange. It was Wednesday, and I decided to go on one last hike before calling it a day. I walked down to my usual trail, which led to a small stream that I liked to take a break at and watch for a bit before heading back. And at first, everything was fine. However, on the walk back, I couldn't help but feel like I had 1,000 sets of eyes on me, like every movement I made was being watched. I tried to shake the feeling off, but it wouldn't go away. By the time I made it back to the cabin, the hair on my arms were standing straight up. I don't know what it was, but there was something wrong. Looking back on it, I wish I just decided to pack up and leave right then and there, but I decided to stay that last night. So I went inside the cabin and locked the door and proceeded to make sure the 2 windows were shut tightly as well. After a bit, I had managed to calm down and was about to fall asleep. That was when I heard it. It sounded like breathing coming from the other side of the cabin door, which was next to the couch that I had been laying on. I froze. I couldn't catch my breath as I tried to listen for more breathing noises. But what I was met with was far worse. A quick, scratchy noise began to come from the other side of the door, as if something was trying to dig its way through. Then it stopped. I waited for a moment, as still as I could be, and that's when I heard it again, only this time it was to the right of the door, directly in front of where I was facing. It was as if it knew right where I was positioned. The scratching persisted for about 30 minutes, though it felt like hours. I didn't get any sleep that night, and as soon as the sun was up, I grabbed everything that I brought with me and bolted to my car. As I was sitting in the driver's seat, I was horrified at the sight of deep claw marks in the lower part of the cabin. An animal was definitely trying to get in that night, and I never went back to that cabin again. I was only 10 the last time that my family had gone to our cabin for a vacation. We used to go every year, but after that time, we stopped. which I was glad about because something really strange happened the last time I was there. It was me, my older sister, my mother, and my father. They had all gone to sleep and I was restless. I mean, it was early and I was 10, so I didn't know what to do with myself. I ended up making the foolish decision to sneak out and stare at the stars. We didn't get those kinds of sights in the city, so I snuck out of the cabin as quietly as I could and made my way to the fire pit. The fire had long been put out, but it was a good place to sit and overlook the field near the cabin and see the stars. As I sat there, I looked out into the field, and at first, I couldn't tell what I was seeing. It looked like something was moving in the tree line just beyond the field. It wasn't until it stepped out into the light that I realized it was a man, and he appeared to be heading towards the woods on the other side of the field. As he made his way through the field, I could see more and more of what he was doing because of the moonlight. I noticed he was dragging something that looked heavy. My heart just about to stop, though when I noticed he stopped moving and turned in my direction, I wasn't sure that he saw me until I noticed he lifted his hand, and I swear he waved. I was so scared, however, to my relief, he just kept on moving. I immediately went inside and didn't say anything about it to my parents. I didn't want to get in trouble for sneaking out. It wasn't until 5 years later, when we were all sitting outside of our home, enjoying some takeout by the pool, that I ended up bringing it up. I didn't think anything of it. We had just been talking about some scary things that happened to us, so I thought it would be a good one to share, but the look on my dad's face told me that I had said something that really freaked him out. That was when he explained to me why we had never gone back to that cabin. Apparently, 2 weeks after we had left and gone home, my parents were questioned by the police considering a body that they found near our cabin just a few days after we had left. Apparently, upon searching the area, police found 9 different bodies buried in the property. I will absolutely never forget what I saw that night, or how lucky I am still to be here. I was so excited to be getting back to the cabin with my cousins. It had been a few years since I had been able to join them on their weekend hunting trips, but finally, our schedules lined up and my parents let me go with them. It was just me, my 2 cousins, and their dad, my uncle. We made it to the cabin and began to unpack. The boys and I couldn't wait to get outside and run around the woods for a little while before it got dark. So, that's exactly what we did. We dropped our stuff off and immediately ran outside. We were out there for about 2 hours before my uncle called us in for dinner. When we got inside, he seemed a bit weird, but I didn't think anything of it. I just sat down and got ready for some dinner. That was when my uncle asked my older cousin if he remembered leaving the door open or anything like that. He seemed to think that a squirrel or some sort of animal had gotten in and had been rummaging through whatever they had left there. My cousin said no, and that was the end of that conversation. We didn't speak another word about it. We just enjoyed our pasta and talked about our plans for the next day. All through the meal, though, I couldn't help but shake the feeling like something was looking at us. Again, I just brushed it off like it was nothing and finished eating. After a few hours, it was time for bed. My cousins and I got to stay in the living room of the cabin, on the pull-out couch and the reclining chair, while my uncle slept in the room that was in the back of the cabin. It took a while because we didn't have a TV, but we eventually fell asleep. However, about an hour after finally passing out, I woke up to my younger cousin shaking me. When I asked him what he needed, he didn't move, but I noticed his eyes were locked onto the window. When I looked, I couldn't help but scream. On the other side of the window, I could see a full-grown man looking in at us. I yelled so loud that I startled everyone in the cabin awake. my older cousin, and my uncle. It was so loud that even the man outside the window seemed shocked. My uncle came running out to ask me what happened. We explained everything, and without a second question, my uncle grabbed his cell phone and called the local police. They said they would be at the cabin in about 10 minutes. So until then, we all went into my uncle's room where he had his hunting rifle. And that was where we waited until the police arrived. After about 20 minutes of searching the woods, they found a man who had been hiding out in the bushes about a mile away. When they found him, the police said that he had a knife on him that looked like a kitchen knife. It was one of the ones from the cabin. To this day, the only conclusion that we could come up with is that the man had been staying in the cabin without my uncle knowing, and when we showed up, he had to leave, but he left prepared to come back and take the cabin by force. I'm thankful every day that my little cousin managed to see the man before anything bad could have happened.